there is no recipe for success in a video game. So and AI sure can't find it. If we humans haven't found like, hey, if you do a game and you do X and Y and Z, the game will be a banger, certified absolute success. No, that won't happen. And AI, I think, can help you find issues, but the solutions that we humans come to find, playtesting, studying design, watching gameplays, and thinking, well, how can I help this player overcome this situation? I think AI has yet not come far enough to provide this solution.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our sixth episode, Game UX Alchemists.
Wow, six
As you can,
already.
yeah, already six, imagine.
Already
But
six. Yeah, wow, great.
as you can see, we have a very, very special guest today. We have Kurt, a CTO of Antidote. He's our
Hey
heartbeat of the
everyone,
company and our platform. Welcome, Kurt.
how's it guys?
Good. Kurt is not only an engineer, but he's also an ex-game dev who made was there a couple indie games? Did you say, Kurt, before?
Yes, I was trying to get into the indie dev space from I guess like 2001 all the way to 2007. I released a bunch of demos. I released 2 sports titles and then some like UI tooling specifically for pixel art. But that was a different lifetime, long, long ago.
But either way, it would be great to have your take on today's topic, which is a quite big one actually, which is role of AI in UX research. We'll try our best to condense it a little bit today, and but I wanted to talk more about it in terms of game development and UX research, right? Uh, of course, it's impacting pretty much every industry from marketing to even dev. But I wanted to ask with a bit more generic question for you. Where do you, in terms of UX research, where do you think AI helps the researchers, and where does it fall short? It's quite a broad question, but just from your experience and from what perspective, how does AI actually help the workflows?
I think that, let me get this one. I think AI helps in UX research for like clustering themes, or for, in our case, analyzing think out loud comments, or doing repetitive tasks. So us, the researchers, get to do all the hard work, or all the analyzing and all the other tasks that are that are analyzing. Or where it falls short, I think it's on the empathy. Like, AI doesn't have the context of the game, doesn't understand what the player is feeling. When you look at the gameplays, you can see and you can understand their emotions, how they say things, their way of saying things, that probably the player is saying something else, but you can tell that the player is feeling. And yes, I think that the UX researcher, that's where helps AI, and where it falls short. The AI doesn't understand the context of the game, the lore, the mechanics, the and we interpret the players.
So obviously I'm outside of the UX team, but it has been quite a big focus of the product team over the last year and a bit to try to build out the tooling to help the UX team, streamline their own processes. Um, and so what we found AI to be really helpful with is the very low level analysis of data. So, for example, we use AI to transcribe gameplay recordings. So then we get a spoken transcript. From that, we can then use AI again in a different context to generate sentiment for what the player is talking about. And then on a different level, we also use a different form of AI, especially when there's face recording, to be able to guess effectively what emotions the player is feeling at any point in time. And so what we found really helpful as a product team is, there's this lower level of data analysis that is incredibly useful to reduce the amount of time and the amount of data that our UX researchers have to go through to find useful insights. But it's not yet at the point where it's going to analyze an entire project on its own, generate a report, and tell a customer exactly what they need to do to, hit the next level in their dev cycle.
Yes,
Actually,
what
it's a good thing
happened?
you mentioned.
Go ahead.
No, no, go on, Lucy. Sorry.
Um, Actually, what happened to me in the last project was that, well, I was reading and I was going through the gameplays with the use of our transcriptions, and a player was having an issue or something was happening, but then he was saying, okay, this is frustrating, or I don't like this, or I don't know what to do, for example. And then a few sentences later, he realized how to do a certain task, but the transcript was there. I don't know what to do. And then 2 minutes later, or whatever, found out by himself how to solve this problem, and then there was not an issue any longer. So the AI
Hmm.
gets the sentence, I have this issue, and then like flags it, but then there is not an issue. So that's when we come and we watch all the recordings and we understand if it was actually an issue or not, like in this case.
It's quite interesting because, like Kurt mentioned, that AI is quite useful for I guess completing manual tasks like transcripts and video recordings. But I had a question for you, Alex. What do you think is the risk of leaning a bit too much or too hard on AI? So in terms of like just relying on it to not only like complete transcripts but also interpret it, create feedback, report, and then pass it on as a report.
Well, I think it mostly goes to the point that Lucy was just mentioning, that AI will flag things that it considers are not working, even though if they follow the natural gameplay plan, and you analyze the video, you can see that, okay, the player learned. It may have taken a little while, but everything went good. There is no flag here. So AI can be a useful tool to expedite and to make some processes more fast, more efficient. But I'd say that, and maybe Kurt can agree or disagree with me on this one, but I'll say that there is no how to say it. There is no recipe for success in a video game. So and AI sure can't find it. If we humans haven't found like, hey, if you do a game and you do X and Y and Z, the game will be a banger, certified absolute success. No, that won't happen. And AI, I think, can help you find issues, but the solutions that we humans come to find, playtesting, studying design, watching gameplays, and thinking, well, how can I help this player overcome this situation? I think AI has yet not come far enough to provide this solution. You know.
Yeah, and I think if I can just add something to what Alex just said is, I think what we can kind of agree on is that AI is very good at just basic data analysis. What it's not good at is understanding and synthesizing that understanding into next steps.
But there's a lot of like mentioning of AI does this, AI does this, but I don't think many people actually understand what AI is. As a nature. Like, okay, I know probably if I have a bit more understanding, if it's LLM, right? It's But Kurt, as we have you here, could you please just explain in a very broad terms? I know again it's a very massive topic, but what is AI? How does it work? And why is it becoming such a like a mainstream tool nowadays?
How long do we have? um, no, so I'm not going to get into the technical details of it because, like you mentioned, there's lots of different flavors of AI, right? And it's a it's a massive industry, and it's actually where I started working in, and this was 20 years ago. So I mean, if we look at the most popular version of AI right now, it's basically LLMs or SLMs, right? They are all based on like convolution networks, and I think the best way to describe them is they get trained on some corpus of data, right? In the case of OpenAI, it's basically everything, all of the data that's ever been generated on the internet ever. And what they effectively turn into is a stochastic text or image generator, right? So based on the previous outputs, what is the most likely next output going to be? And that's what it spits out. And so you'll see that the evolution from the very first versions of ChatGPT to where we are today, massive, massive difference, right? To the point now where it can, I think O3 can actually answer, and actually DeepSeek's thinking models as well, they can actually answer some very basic maths questions and some trickier maths questions as well. So, I mean, very high level, it's a stochastic generator. Yeah.
And wouldn't this take us to bias, to having bias in whatever we ask, for example? Because if AI works of training data, it depends on the data we feed, right, to it.
Exactly.
So we will end up in the same circle all over again, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, bias is a massive problem in all facets of AI, right? We see it in terms of facial recognition. We see it in voice recognition as well. It is just a big issue because there are certain demographics and certain texts and things like that which are just going to be ignored in the training sets, which means that it's going to be biased towards obviously the data that is being used to generate or to train that particular model, right? I mean, that's always been the problem, and honestly, I don't know if it's ever going to be a solved problem. I think where we are lucky is that, for example, in our case, we don't need to use a public AI model, so we can train our own model, and we can train that using the data that we have, which is, because we control the data, we can decide what data goes into the model, and so we can try to remove bias in that way as well.
So all of our information is safe and sound in Antidote. For you, that.
Yes, that's another issue. Yes.
Which actually leads me to the question that I had. Of course, as Kurt mentioned, we released a new updated version of AI Insights on the Antidote platform. And I had a question for you, Lucy and Alex. So obviously it gives like you guys explained, like an overview, right? The quick summary of the feedback the players gave based on the transcripts, recordings, think aloud comments. Just to give some real life example, how would you then take this tool and how would you use it to help you with analysis to then like generate report afterwards?
So in my case, I use Antidote AI Insights, the new version, because it helps me gather all the themes, and it gives me the transcript so I can see the quote, which player said what in which minute, and then I go to the session and I check whatever was the situation happening there to further understand the issue there. But I like mainly to watch the whole gameplay and read the transcript and make notes. It's really helpful. Thanks, Kurt. I was so happy to have the annotations because it helps me to flag myself the things that I think that are important, and then I see the whole session all the things that were important in each session, and with all the information of all the sessions, I create the report um, for the client.
For me, I'd say AI has been very helpful in helping me find the data. I can, for example, ask what players did mention something about, for example, the graphics of the game, and then the AI helps me and says, "Hey, this, and this player have mentioned," and then I can manually check what has very similar to what Lucy was saying. Check what every player said, and then draw a conclusion from that. So it's like a very useful as a joke, Control plus F.
Hmm.
So it helps me find information very quick, and it's useful in those scenarios. Yeah.
The common theme I can see that you both use it for like finding information or pattern or helping you. Uh, and I would think that a lot of people would be tempted to take it to the next level, right? Uh, for example, let's paint a scenario, guys.
Hmm.
You have a Claude, ChatGPT, whatever you use subscription, right? You create your custom agent or whatever, then you get all the transcripts or the recordings, you dump it there and you ask it, look, this is the results I got. Can you please, I don't know, what would you ask? Prompted to say, can you please analyze themes and what I can improve and what I can suggest to my development team? Again, in theory, right? It should help you, like save you like hours of time. But what would you say is like a dangers of relying too much on this rather than like a human, like personally going and making conclusions?
I think relying too much on AI, especially when you have to share, you have the responsibility of giving suggestions or the responsibility of a game in your hands. Um, I think not checking whatever the results the AI is giving you, that's really bad. So relying on, you throw all the information, you create an agent, and then it gives you whatever feedback, and then using that without checking, that's really bad. Because of course, as we all know, the information won't be accurate. um, so so our projects, our everything I think we do on daily life has to be double checked by us. Yeah, so we can't rely on AI. It's just a tool that will accelerate our processes, but we cannot let the AI take decisions for us.
Um, I would also add that when we usually make reports, we usually share them between ourselves and double check that everything we have written and the conclusions and any suggestions we make sense to other researchers in the team. We just, hey, take a look at this. Everything makes sense to you. Everything checks out. So um, not doing it, and on top of that, it being on AI, I think it would be like a double fail safe that we is a risk we're taking. I don't know how to phrase it, but we usually double and triple check things to make sure that everything makes sense. So I think a lot of qualitative analysis would be lost, and there would be a potential, um, I don't know, chance of mistakes or incorrect assumptions, or I don't know.
I agree.
I wouldn't.
Where I use it outside of use of research is, I speak Spanish. That's my first language. I speak English as well, but sometimes I throw the information and I ask AI without, of course, giving any private information to the AI, but to help her. Well, I say her because the AI, I don't know, I think it's a female. to make the sentence better. That's what I to improve writing. Notion has this feature. I think it's really useful. Improve writing. You throw all the information and it creates a beautiful paragraph that I could have never written it better.
So again, using it as a assistant, right? Rather
Yes,
than like a decision maker. That's what we're trying.
yes,
Basically, the
exactly.
theme, right? And speaking of AI agents, the not the trend, but what I've been seeing more is the idea of creating those AI agents who are either QA testers or play testers, with a potential hope that they can replace the actual player feedback, right? Because one of the hardest, most difficult part of the organizing playtest is player recruitment, as you guys know. And of course, in theory, having an AI do it for you and give the feedback would be ideal, time, blah, 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 blah. Again, what would be the pitfalls if you rely on AI agents to give you the actual qualitative feedback?
Who wants
I
to
think
start?
I think the most. So there you go.
No, no, no. No, you go, Kurt.
I was going to say the most obvious one is that you lose out on like what makes human playtesters human, right? It's the nuances of how players experience the game on an emotional level, how players experience the game, with motor issues, with motor skill issues. Um, you lose out on all of those things. And sure, you can try to simulate it to a certain extent using various kinds of AI, but it's never going to be as expressive and as random as a human would be. I think that's the major issue with trying to model player behavior as an AI bot.
Yes, AA ancients don't have emotions or expectations or lived experience that comes in play when the player is playing the game, right? So the AI agent won't tell you if the game is rewarding or if it's immersive. It will just it can tell you, oh, there is a bug here, or any, I think, usability related issues. So it won't replace real players. Don't.
I was just going to say the same. You can ask AI if it understood the point of the game. You can ask AI if it encountered some progression issues, but you cannot ask AI if it had fun with the game. So it's
Exactly.
really the same point.
Nothing
So
emotional.
yeah, nothing to add there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also important to understand like why companies want to move away from real player testing to using AI. Like what is the underlying issue they're trying to solve?
What do you
And I
think?
suspect
Money?
as I suspect it's an issue of cost,
Yeah.
which really shouldn't be the case, right? It's one of the poorest paid professions in the gaming industry, and it's also the one that has the lowest, oh, not yeah, the lowest retention rate. Simply because usually at the tail end of a project, those are the first people to get fired. Um, so yeah, I think it comes back to and this is a completely separate chat, but it comes back to the maybe one of the issues in the industry where we've got these sky high budgets, massive employee headcounts, which might not be the most sustainable thing. And if they're trying to solve it with AI, I'm not sure that's the right take.
Hmm. And who are you? Who do, who do you say the people that got fired first? Who are you referring to?
QA,
Mm.
always,
And I
without
think
fail.
I think that in the end, it's uh, it's a bad circle, right? Because if they test their game with agent AI, they get certain answer, and then of course, as it's not accurate to real life players, then they just do the game, they launch it, and and then actual players play it, and then they realize that, oh, no, we had all the
Feedback's
information,
completely wrong.
yes, valid
Yeah,
from the start, right? So at the end,
yeah.
it will cost them more. So it's not
No, exactly.
a, a rational
Exactly.
solution, I think.
Yeah. I think what they're also missing is that it's like AI agents aren't plug and play. You don't just like buy or license an AI bot from a company and then drop it into your game. There's lots of dev integration that needs to go along with it for the AI to understand the concept of the space around it inside the game. Um, and that's going to be different for every single game that you build. So it's unlikely to ever be just like plug and play. And those costs need to be borne by someone. And that time needs to be spent by the dev team and most likely like the technical art team and the designers and like I think it's an interesting idea. I just don't think it's feasible, and I don't think it's in the best interest of gamers, to be honest.
Hmm.
The examples you gave, I think from what I heard, mostly apply to like bigger studios, right? Who have budgets for these different departments. But a question for you, Kurt, as you were an ex-dev who made, a couple of indie games. Let's say if you were making them now and you had the access to all these AI tools, like analysis tools, LLMs, as you said, how would it help you to speed up slash make it easier the whole process as an indie dev?
Um, so I think the biggest indie game that I made was a sports game. So it was a cricket game, which is very popular in the Commonwealth countries. Um, and the biggest player base was from India, so India and Pakistan. Obviously, both countries have a very high like English-speaking population, but some of the nuances do still get lost when it's your second language, right? And so I think the way that I would have used AI back then was to translate a lot of the in-game content, translate some of the conversations that I was having with these players, because effectively, like one of the first things I did was to try to build out a community online who could help build the game with me, right? And I think that's always going to be the recipe for success for any indie dev, and for most studios, to be honest. And I think that's really where AI would have helped me, is to remove that language barrier. But to a certain extent, obviously, it's not perfect. But honestly, I wouldn't have used it for anything else.
So you wouldn't use it in either analysis, building, uh, I don't use this word, but vibe coding, anything like that, no?
No, no. We should definitely have a podcast about vibe coding at some point. But no, no. So
I'll
I
make
wouldn't
a
have
note.
used it for coding. And again, like so I've a lot of my family members are artists in various mediums. And so it never would have occurred to me to, use AI to generate art for the game, because why would I do that when I could actually get somebody who cared about what they were producing to produce something for me, and, we exchange money. Yeah, that's just something that wouldn't have crossed my mind, I think. For what it's worth, I actually did. I used a studio based in the Philippines to generate a lot of the art for the game. This is a long, long time ago when the exchange rate was a lot more favorable. Now, not so much.
And do you use AI now, or Kurt?
That was my next question as well.
Ah.
I think to the same extent that you use it, Lucy. If I have writer's block and I can't find a way to say something, especially in emails, then I will toss some text into ChatGPT or something,
Mhm.
and have it help me out. But otherwise, no, I don't use it in
Proofreading.
coding or
Mhm.
anything else. Yes.
So, following the trend of trying to automate every single task humanly possible, no, Gert?
No, no, absolutely not. I just also I don't think it's at a level where it makes sense to do that, to be honest.
What about you, Lucy and Alex? Just going back to the UX research element of it a bit more. Uh, I know Lucy mentioned helping with writing and clarity, which I admit is very useful. Is there any other ways you use it in conjunction with your work?
Mm, trying to think. I just finished a big report, as you could see. Um, what else do I use AI for? Sometimes I use it to create surveys. So, for example, I have the objective of the project, and I throw information that the AI needs. So, for example, the type of game I will do the project about, the themes I need the survey about, and it throws really good ideas. They need to be polished in the end, but yeah, it helps me to have more ideas on the surveys.
What about you, Alex?
For me, I think it's quite the opposite. I avoid using it to translate to English. I prefer to check on Google Translate or in any dictionary how the word, what word to use and what phrase to use. Sorry, because that way I can improve my English. I quote unquote force myself to improve it. Um, but yeah, I try to avoid using it and do my manual tasks as manually as I can. Yeah,
Do you consider yourself to be anti AI, Alex?
not anti. I wouldn't say anti AI because I think some AI can be beneficial and can be powerful and can help us as humans, right? Getting a little bit philosophical. But I do think that there is a dark side and that AI can also potentially be dangerous, can also potentially steal someone's work, and that overusing AI on my work will not help me improve as a UX researcher, for example. So I try to um, rely on myself when possible, but I wouldn't 100% be against AI, anti AI. Yeah.
What Alex mentioned is actually quite interesting. I think he touched upon the ethical side of using it because again, it's very easy for us as users. You just put in some text to generate some answers, but it comes at some sort of cost, right? Uh, like from as Alex put it, like stealing somebody's work, or even did I read right? This takes a lot of electricity or water to run it. So, what would be your take on the ethical side of it as well of using it? Like, how could we use it more responsibly?
Yes, I agree um, on the worldwide. How do you say? What happens when, of course, the AI and all the servers need to be cooled down, needs to have electricity and all the impact it has on every day and every single prompt we give. So I think that's the scary part of the AI, what its impact on the world. I think using it responsible would be maybe acting like Alex, not relying, of course, 100% on AI, but doing things manually when you can. I think that would be a solution so far. What else
Yeah,
can we do?
uh, and just to expand on that a little bit, I want to ask Kurt's perspective as well. Like I say, everyone just talks about how AI automates, improves everything, but what does it take, Kurt, to keep it going?
What's the toll
And yeah,
on
what's the
using
toll? It's not
it?
just ChatGPT as well. There's Claude. There's
Oh,
so many different
there's hundreds
nowadays.
of these. Yeah.
Yeah, and what does it take to run them?
A lot. So I mean, so pretty much every LLM needs to be run on server grade hardware, right? And I'm talking about these are for every single machine, they'll have multiple 100 core CPUs running, multiple GPUs, which are tailor-made for LLMs, which are also power hogs. So think RTX 5090 plus. And that obviously takes its toll because there's it takes its toll not just because it uses a lot of power, but also because it's the new in thing. And so this is where VCs are pumping their money into, and this is where most of the startups are being born out of, which means that there's this increasing demand, not just from customers, but also from companies and VCs. And so there's this kind of flywheel effect that's causing, we see more customer engagement and more customer growth, more user growth, which means that, you need more companies. More companies will spin up because there's money to be made. And so you end up in this vicious cycle where it's not necessarily the most useful tool, but it's the most profitable tool at the moment. And that's why it's becoming more popular. So I don't quite know how we solve it. I don't know if we can solve it. To NVIDIA and even Huawei's credits, they are trying to improve the efficiency of these chips and these cards, but that doesn't solve the issue, right? It just kicks the can further down the road. Like it's someone else's problem 20 years from now. It's not our problem right now. But I think apart from like the environmental and energy costs, I think to Alex's points, I think an even bigger short-term cost is just people losing skills. If your first go-to is always to just go, oh, I've got this problem, but I also have a lot of context on the problem. Let me just dump everything into ChatGPT and see what it tells me to do. You're not going to get better at your job, right? And that affects everyone from school kids all the way through to, people like us who work in a very skilled environment. But that also does give you the opportunity to use tools like ChatGPT. So I think in the short term, that's probably the bigger problem that we face is that over time, as people become more reliant on these tools, people will be less skillful than they used to be, or than they could be.
Yeah, it's interesting because I keep seeing on the platforms like LinkedIn of people who never developed anything before use something like Cursor or Lovable and say, I built a SaaS in 2 days, don't need a developer. And then when something goes wrong, like, guys, I need help. I don't know what happened. Right? Because what you mentioned, Kurt, you didn't build the core skill of understanding.
Yeah. So that's actually a very good point, Adam, because there was a guy who decided, this happened last month. There was a guy on Twitter who decided that he was going to vibe code a SaaS in public. And he did.
Ooh.
He did. And then the day that he launched his product, it basically got hacked by everyone. And it turned into this like 1,000 reply thread on Twitter. It's the funniest thing.
You got hacked.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Because he was building in public. And look, again, this is this could be an entirely separate episode. But vibe coding is called vibe coding for a reason. Like you don't end up with something that is production ready.
And we could apply the same concept to UX research, right? Which is the last question I had for today. For you, actually, Lucy and Alex, there is a scaremongering in every industry, right? In marketing, the one I work, will replace marketers, it will replace this people. How close do you think is to replacing UX researchers in general, or will it ever be possible?
I still think that,
In your opinion?
well, I don't know for sure, of course, but I think that at least in the short term, want to replace us because we are humans and we understand humans. AIs don't. So we look for the emotions, and of course that's what sells games, right? So uh, we connect with the players. We can ask questions to the players regarding what they were saying, what they are feeling, um, follow-up questions based on emotion or confusion. We can detect that, which AI can only guess, as we mentioned earlier. So I think that that with that, and as well as analyzing and having um, a common sense or thinking or having being rational on the things, on the results, um, that's what will keep us here, right? We understand the players.
Doing playtests, I'd say it's not only about watching gameplay. It's not only about drawing conclusions. It's about organizing the playtest. It's about live moderating the playtest. It's about schedules. It's about talking with the client, adapting last minute changes. And I think that it will be a very difficult skill for an AI to learn and to execute professionally and reliably and all that stuff. So I think at least we still have some good years on on UX research before AI takes over. But yeah, it's not only watching commentaries, which I think some people would say like, hey, you guys only watch videos and say, hey, this works, this doesn't. It's more than that. So yeah, that it will be additionally difficult for AI.
And I guess it's, of course, this is only the UX research part of game development in general, right? Because there is also other elements, just game design, art, the code, which I would love to ask more questions about it, but maybe in perhaps different episodes because that's completely different, area of development. But I think, well, thank you guys for joining today's episode. We tried to condense as much as possible into this massive topic. I think we definitely have to shoot a few more episodes, like tackling a few of the sections in a bit more detail. But it was lovely to have you, Kurt, as a special guest. Thank you for joining and sharing your expertise with
Thanks for
us.
having me,
Thank you,
guys.
Kurt.
Thanks for
And
having
thank
me,
you,
guys.
and thank you, Lucy, Alex, as always, for joining,
It was a
and for
pleasure.
you guys for listening. Uh, Again, thank you for joining. Have a good week. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you,
Yay,
guys.
see you in the next one. Subscribe,
Bye
Cheers,
bye.
everyone.
like.